Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Getting Carried Away, the YouTube show where Emma and I interview authors about their passions, the books, music, TV, film, and sometimes crazy rogue choices, the things that they love that inspire and mean the most to them.
Hello! We are delighted to welcome this week. Our guest is Louise Gooding, who is a writer of non-fiction, picture books, numerous other things. But I got to know her as a children's writer and whose debut book came out last year in March called Just Like Me. Welcome, Louise.
Hi! So excited to be here.
Excellent. We're excited to have you here. Now, you've got three very unusual choices for us this evening.
There is a really great, we've worked this out, that there is a good way they blend into each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you might be right. So let's talk about your first choice, which is Georgie Grub. Tell us about Georgie Grub and how you discovered Georgie Grub.
So many people. I introduced Georgie Grub to my publishers actually a few weeks ago because I was trying to explain that when I grew up, I had this love for like books that were just a bit weird, especially when I was little. I mean, I wrote, when kids like they have that thing at school where you have to like change the ending of a nursery rhyme. Did you ever have to do that at school?
Yeah.
And it's like, write a new ending for Jack and Jill. Well, for me, Jack and Jill, died and someone pooed on someone's head, and Miss Muffet, the spider came and ate her heart and she died. I was that kid.
Everyone died.
Everybody died. Someone got pooed on. It was just, that was my sense of humor. And then there was this amazing, and I have it because I found the original copy of it. This is it.
Oh, wow.
And this is the real 90s or 80s version of it. And it's just brilliant. It was just this kid's story that, it was about this basically stinky kid. And I mean, I've got kids now. I don't know about you guys, but they do stink. And you do have to fight to get them in a shower or a bath. It's quite normal.
My kids smell so much. My kids really, really smell. Like I sent someone a picture of them recently. They're like, "Oh my god, your kids are beautiful." And I was like, "They're not. They absolutely honk. You should live in my house."
You scratch and sniff on the phone.
Yeah, so grim.
Can they hear you, Emma? They're going to unplug the Wi-Fi.
I'm in my daughter's really stinky room. Trying not. No, it's fine. No, they can't hear me. They know they stink. The thing is, it makes no difference to them, does it? Like you'll say, "Go and shower," and they're like, yeah, right.
I think the smell still lingers even when they shower. There was a reason Axe spray came into fashion. You can tell it was created by parents. I'm sure it was created by Lynx. Africa was created by parents to cover up everything. But anyways, the story was it spoke to me because it was just this story about this stinky kid and he just wouldn't wash, and it's all done in rhyme. And it's just basically, and I don't know, can I ruin the ending for everyone? I mean,
I think you definitely should. I loved the ending.
It's a proper shocker.
And you've got like this whole thing, he's stinky and all the dogs are following him because he just stinks and everyone's avoiding him. And his mum's just like, he's covered in like fleas and mankiness, and they're just, and he just won't wash. And the mum just says, right, that's it, I've had enough, get out. And he just walks along the streets and he's sad and he's got nowhere else to stay. And, he's just sad. And so he just decides to crawl in. So at the end of it, and no one would let him in, he crawled inside a rubbish bin, in with rotten cabbage stumps, with slimy stew and porridge lumps, bristle bones and half-eaten chips, apple cores and custard drips. Little Georgie went to sleep, quite buried in the rubbish heap. There's really not much more to say because the bin men came on Saturday, and that gave me, I howled. I loved the idea that this kid was just like, the story. And I guess with Kidlit nowadays, there's always a positivity. Everyone's going to be the winner, and there'll be a positive spin on that. But as a kid, I loved the fact that he obviously just had to climb in a bin and then nobody knows what happened, but we also do know what happened.
But is that what happened to Georgie then? Did he get like crushed?
That's it.
No. With that image, literally, like the bin man happily just taking the bins. You never know what happened to Georgie.
But it's not a bin Anna. Like, it's not Stephen King's written this, right? It's not like a bin compactor. It's not like a modern bin. No, Georgie gets his brains picture of him like he's compacted.
Yeah, but it was just that whole thing as a kid. I thought that was hilarious. And like nowadays, it's so sensitive. I mean, if I was to write children's picture books, that's my sense of humor. I mean, we all grew up in that sort of like Roald Dahl revolting rhymes. Georgie Grub was like that. So that is my sense of humor, and I'm very much like that, and naughty and terrible. And I love that kids are still kind of. I think kids are there, but we just don't give them access to it now. There's a lot of more sensitivity, which sometimes I do worry about, because I'm like, are we being too sensitive? Because kids, I don't know, kids are just, they're horrible. I'm saying, if I have 3 children and I work with children, and I say this with so much love, but kids are horrible. Kids are gross.
And they do love horrible stuff. You're right.
They love horrible stuff. And I think it's just us as we get older. We're like, oh no, we probably shouldn't show them that. We do. I mean, I've gate kept at times, you know, with my kids and gone like, oh, maybe you shouldn't read that. And then I've gone, oh, actually, hold on, wait. Like, I probably read worse I wrote worse when I was younger. So,
did you find the ending of it though? Did you find it like hilariously funny or bit disturbing? Or
I just loved it, how random it was. I mean, that's the whole thing you're going to learn about me today. I was so random. I love the fact it just wasn't like every other book I'd read. It wasn't like, it was just allowed me the chance to laugh at something unfortunate. And kids laugh at everything unfortunate. You know, they're like, have a really bad sense of humor. So it kind of gave me permission to laugh at the more macabre or the weird, and find humor in like a tragic situation. And I'm the worst at doing that, as we're going to find out. I just have that, like, I don't know, I've always had that in me. I don't know, because you read it, Emma, did you find it?
Well, no, I found it. I was looking for it in the week, and then I found it, and someone has read it on YouTube. So I sent the link to Anna, and then I was playing it in the car earlier with my daughter. So my daughter's like nearly 13.
Yeah.
And I was like, you need to listen to this, mate. You need to have a listen. And then at the end, she just went, what happens to him? And I'm like, taken away in the bin. And she was horrified. So she was laughing, but it was that laughter that's like really uncomfortable laughter. And it's a real blunt ending as well, isn't it? Like, you do expect there to be another page.
Don't know. We just see happy, jolly bin men escorting the bins off. Nobody knows.
You should write a sequel, Lou. I want to see you write a sequel of
maybe that's Stick of the Dump.
Like in a massive Stick of the Dump. Yeah. He wakes up and he's like makes friends with like a rotten, like one-eyed rat and stuff. Like
just a half-chewed watermelon, and a rat like the half-chewed watermelon is like the Wilson, but you know, like Wilson.
Yeah. And the rats learn to speak because of like like radioactive bin juice.
Yeah, I genuinely just assumed that he died a horrible death.
Did you actually think he was compacted? And oh my word, you took it one step further.
I was imagining being like mashed up in the back. You know, when you see them like tip the bins into the back of the lorry, and they get kind of mashed up, and then, or like in, you know, and you see in those like American car scrap yards where they just come out as like a really small cube. I was imagining him as one of them.
Oh, that would be good. Oh my god, that would be terrifying if he came out with like a little eyes and a cube. Jesus, that would actually scare me quite a bit.
But like it's something which, you know, it was something which, you know, it came around again as an adult, because when I said like to you guys of the week, like when my grandma passed away, she actually wanted to be thrown in the green bin. It was like on, you know, she was so like, when I die, I want to be recycled, just throw me in the green bin. And I literally drew this illustration of you know, because it just amused me. I took it so seriously. Obviously,
of Granny in the green.
It was 2 years after her death. I actually wrote her like a story about like how the end of her life as such. And I had this illustration with 2 legs stuck out of a green bin, and like the line was how the bin men wouldn't be too pleased when finding, you know, the bin grandma we'd squeezed or something, like, you know, like. And That's not the story I'm writing anymore. That was kind of vetoed. But I would love to write that. That's what I mean.
But I do think that's really healthy. I feel like, because I mean, maybe that's because that's my sense of humor as well. Like maybe everyone else is like, oh my God, that's just sick and wrong. But I feel like finding humor in, you know, difficult situations and difficult circumstances, like that's what gets you through, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I have that weird. I've said ever since I was little, I had that weird relationship with death and just the morbid. I mean, how many kids? I mean, everyone went through. My sister sent me this post of the day. Like everyone, who were you if you didn't go through an ancient Egyptian phase where you thought you actually considered whether you want to be mummified? Like most people thought it was kind of cool. You know,
my heart in a pot. Yeah,
most people went through that phase of being like obsessed with the ancient Egyptians and stuff. So it's not like it's not there and kids don't love it. But I mean, I just went even further and I looked. I mean, we went to the Plastination, took even my own kids to the Plastination Bodyworks thing, and I loved it. I was like, this is brilliant. And my kids are a bit like, I was like, isn't it brilliant? Because I just think it's so interesting. It's something that's, you know, we all have like a real. It's death seems scary, and it is scary, and it's a horrible thing. And you know, I'm very lucky that, you know, the people in my life have not, you know, they've passed away quite peacefully, and we've all been kind of, we've had a really like a good relationship in a way with dealing with death and stuff. But you know, I think it's interesting just to kind of, I'm that sort of person. If I give all this to my kids, we talk about stuff, and I don't like hiding it because it's quite natural. And
I think there's a real so I think there's but I think there is a real space in children's fiction to explore death and loss in ways that necessarily haven't been done yet. So was it your gran that was made into ash, like fireworks?
Yeah, we put her in a firework. So this is the so when
so that would make a beautiful picture book. That would make a beautiful picture book if done right, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that was the original one when I talked about being in a bin, because you know, my daughter, we went to the fireworks memorial because we did it on her 90th birthday. My daughter told her teacher that she was going to blow up grandma. You know, she was like, that's what we were doing at the weekend. And so many people were like, what are you doing? Okay, she's been cremated first, isn't it? Can you imagine? It's, you know, it was just sorry.
I am imagining now.
It was funny, and it was just, I love the idea of blowing up grandma, because you'd have this idea, you know, if I said, oh, we're blowing up grandma, people would think I'd be like just like bigging her up and making her, like, you know, talking about her like that. No, I'm not. I'm literally blowing grandma up.
But in a beautiful, colourful way. I mean, it's not like, you know, dismembered leg just, you know, arcing through the sky or anything, which is what my first thought was. Like, sorry. It would work with a picture book. I think it would be a really beautiful picture book. Like, I would love.
I would love, and I think it's my publishers. When I met with the one, I've got a book coming out next year. I can't talk about it, but I have a book coming next year, and I did say I'd love to still talk about death. I mean, I am the lady who wears bright, colourful rainbows and glitter and sparkles. I'm probably not the person you expect to come in and talk about that, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's because I'm not being, you know, I'm doing it in a positive light. We're so often, I don't know, when we deal with death, I do appreciate we do need the sensitivity, and we do need to be respectful, but we also, it's a part of life. And I think, you know, Horrible Histories did a great job at making us see the amusing bad things, if that makes sense.
Oh God, all their rhymes and stuff about the Black Death and the plague and all that stuff was really hilarious.
Kids love it. I mean, this is also, I can go on to the next subject, which is why
I was going to say,
which is why I love taxidermy.
That'll go into the next subject, which
beautiful
isn't necessarily a book or a film or a game or music. I'm yet to find a little pop song about taxidermy, although I'm sure you might know one, Lou. But yes, your love for, now is it taxidermy full stop, or is it like bad taxidermy? Because I have
an interest in both, because again, like,
go on. So where did this start from? Are you a secret serial killer? Because they always use that as like a shorthand for, like, don't they? Like, you know,
I've said I like plastination and mummification. I mean, there's like, you know,
and now the FBI have got you on some like list.
My family behind me, you know.
I'm
no,
not
no.
pinned up like butterflies.
But no, I just love that. I mean, again, as a kid, you grow up and you've got the Natural History Museum, and there was always, even in the Natural History Museum, which is the best of the best, there was always one animal that looked a bit disturbed. And you just
No,
were
there
like,
is. I went recently. The birds are the worst. They're like,
I know.
so
I don't my sense of humor, and it's like, oh my god, just this poor thing. You can see literally, he's literally been stuffed.
yeah.
But I mean, if there's any vegans watching, don't hate me, because I do appreciate like more natural. I don't like the hunting thing. I don't like people who just do it for sport and fun.
Yeah.
I don't particularly like that. Science reasons for natural history, I think is brilliant and a wonderful thing. And I think that people who, I don't know if you, I mean, it's linked to a book, because this is where I realized I could talk about taxidermy. I don't know if you read this book.
No, what's a funny book
Oh,
about horrible things?
Happy by Jenny Lawson. So before reading this book, it was kind of like that secret thing I should never talk about because people would think I was weird. But Jenny Lawson is an amazing author, and she talks about her, her mental health, mental health journey, and she's very open about that. But I think her dad ran a taxidermy shop and did all the stuff, but she has a mad love for things that have been stuffed and animals which are looking very perturbed, very peculiar, in like people who've decided to dress them up, which is completely inappropriate, but she loves it. She falls in love with these ridiculous, and she found this raccoon. I mean, look at his face.
Is that an actual taxidermy
picture? That's not an illustration.
No,
oh God,
she owns this raccoon. And it was the bit in the book where I read that she has this raccoon, and she says, her husband is very different to her, which is like mine. He's like Mr. CEO, very serious. And she was saying, her husband's, doing all these business meetings, and she gets bored at home. And I was like, oh my goodness, I love this lady. And he would be on a Zoom call, and she would get the raccoon, and behind his head, this thing would it's so cool. And I was like, I love this lady. I love how she, this is like talking to me here. And that's when I realized I admitted to people, like, I would happily have manic taxidermied animals in my house, because most people do, what do you do with them, or the really sad ones that you see in the old charity shops, or not even charity shops now, they're just
really you always see them sad somewhere, don't you, like looking
and I was like, my husband's like, no
no taxidermy in the house, Louise.
But, okay, so yeah, like, would you bring one into your home? So you would have them in your house?
Please, I'm gonna have so many people unfollow me when I say this. I keep threatening to taxidermy the hamster once she's got. And I don't mean that in a horrible way, but I'm just so intrigued. Like, some people do that. Like, and I'm not. Please don't think I am a weirdo. It's fine. I'm not even going to say sorry for that. I am a weirdo, but I'm like, so many people do that. Wasn't there some celebrity who did it with a horse? They taxidermied their horse.
What? Really?
That does ring a bell, actually. I don't know who, but
I mean, I probably won't taxidermy my hamster. Please don't think I'm going to, but I keep threatening to, because the kids are just like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, it's a bit of a waste in a box, isn't it? At the end of the garden, we could have her on the bookshelf.
I was going to ask you if it's because when I like was kind of thinking about having this conversation, I was like, oh, I'll have a bit of a look at some taxidermy, and did some Google searches and found this amazing story about this family who, a bit like you're saying, decided to taxidermy their cat after it had died of a long, full, happy life, died of natural causes. They decided to taxidermy the cat, but they did it themselves.
No, with what?
Is taxidermy, like, is that legal? Is it a regulated industry?
I mean, I'll say my dad's got.
I'm just getting horrible Pet Cemetery flashbacks now.
Oh no! Like, so this cat ended up. It went horribly wrong. I'll just tell you about them. They ended up stretching it, so it was really, really kind of super long and thin, and it just.
It's the worst.
And I was like, is that like allowed? Are you allowed to just?
It with?
But I mean, I have to say, like, my dad's still got like some book from like the 1970s of like stuff for boys, you know, some of those
Yeah.
really weird, like all boys can learn stuff, and it does have instructions of how to. And he always says, "There you go," and I'm like, "I'm not." Thank you.
I mean, I guess it's like, is it like pickling something or doing your own like kimchi or something?
Well, I mean, I'm not
Like
it's not that.
Like sourdough, isn't sourdough? You know, when everyone was doing.
But like, I'm not that interested. I mean, I'm interested in it because I find it fascinating, and I think, you know, it's just one of those things. I mean, I've got a book. I've seen the books. You've seen them as well, like the ones for like really bad taxidermy.
Oh, they're so funny. They're so literally. I've never laughed so much in my life. I got one of those as a stocking filler a few years ago for Christmas.
They're brilliant,
Yeah,
but it's just
brilliant.
like, I mean, I think I do have that. It's that weird respect for death, if that makes sense. But like.
Okay.
I'm interested, but I'm not planning on setting up shop.
No. But would you like to go and see like
my books? Otherwise, I might get into taxidermy.
But it'd be quite an interesting thing to like. It'd be quite an interesting thing to like interview a taxidermist, or
I'd love to.
Do you know what I mean? Like to kind of see what's behind, who comes and brings their, you know, animals. I'm sure there is a Roald Dahl story. There is a Roald Dahl story, I'm sure, about some woman or someone who's got.
Is one of
And
the
the house
like
is full
Tales
of
of the Unexpected, not one of the children's stories. Yeah,
and then and then one of them is like an actual dead thing, or wasn't dead but has been taxidermied or whatever. Yeah, it's quite fascinating.
It's interesting. I mean, to be honest, then what's the difference then? I mean, I know there's a difference, but then the placination is just like kind of a human.
What's the placination thing? Isn't that when they stripped them? That was that Bodyworks thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
how does that work? What is that?
Like a concoction of like plastic, sort of like a plastic sort of solution. I used to know all this, and it basically placinates like either the nerves or the blood
veins and stuff,
or the veins and the muscles, and you know, just to show. I mean, I think there's been some controversy because there was a lot of people who did leave their bodies to the guy who did all this, and they knew what they're signing up for. But I think there's been some controversy around some of it. There always is going to be with that.
And you can imagine that if you were a relative, even if like it's one thing being like an organ donor, isn't it?
Yeah,
and it's another thing sort of saying, oh, you know, you can go and see Uncle Bob with all his bits out.
I think the fascinating thing is because beforehand, when people used to see models, I guess, of like real organs, they were either just say pickled in a jar, which wasn't particularly accessible, or they were in blocks of plastic, so you couldn't really see them as such. You know, the idea was now you've got, you know, things you can really see up close, and you can actually get a lot more again for biology. I mean, I love biology. Biology, I think, is fantastically. So many people are just going to be like, "Oh my goodness me, I love biology."
I love it.
This is why I write about the brain. I mean, I love learning about the body and things and how we work, and I just find it fascinating. Which you know, it's again, you know. It goes from books from like, you know, Georgie Grub, I was already a bit like weird, to, you know, I'm the sort of mum that if my children find a squash dried up thing on the floor, or we have a squash dried up frog, which still we still have it in our house. My friend was like, you're like a witch.
Is it on the shelf?
Frog in your house? Like, who keeps dried frog? And I'm like, but it's fascinating. But you know, we love that. We found like a sheep's skull on, you know, as well, like, you know, washed up, and we love that, and we bring it back, and I think it's fascinating. You know, I had that. Sorry, it's very death themed.
No, but it's synonymous with life, though, isn't it? It's living things, and that they're not, you know, around anymore, and how it's right to the heart of just, you know, how things work, how kind of, you know, fascinating and different, and what can be done. That, you know, it's a kind of limitless potential, really, imagination.
I think it does surprise people. So a lot of people meet me, and I, you know, you've met me, and I am apparently. Not trying to blow my own trumpet here. Everyone says that I am like bubbly and very friendly, and I come across in a rainbow of colours, and I'm all over. And then, but this is my interest.
Yeah,
I think people are normally like they were this eternal optimist, sunshine lady who goes, and let's talk about this. I think it really surprises people because it's not, you know, it's not what you expect, I think.
I think that makes sense, though, because that would suggest that you're the sort of person who's not Do you know what I mean? You're not shying away from anything. You're not repressing anything. You're not kind of pretending to be anything you're not. And I think that those two things absolutely go hand in hand. That makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah, it does. And it does make sense to me. And also it's just really kind of fresh and engaging and kind of enthusiastic, passion for something that most people might not consider or think is, acceptable to talk about, kind of thing. And anything like anything like that talked about isn't, it's really interesting. I mean, I think, I remember reading an article once on someone that worked in a morgue. Is that when they make them all, embalm them and everything? Yeah. And I think she might have written a book, actually. Like, both of you might be interested in that for your weird respective things.
Lady, is it? Is it the Ask a Mortician lady, Caitlin something?
I don't know.
She's amazing.
Have you read Smoke Gets in Your Eyes? That's the lady who works in the crematorium, and that's so good.
Is that factual? Is that like her accounts of...
who works in the crematorium, and it's so
maybe it was from that, or not. I haven't read the book, but I read an article about it, and it was a brilliant article saying why she, enjoyed it and how rewarding it was and how peaceful it was, and it was a real privilege as well to be kind of doing that. I don't think it's weird. I think it's
but I think it's, again, even if anyone's looking for a book to read, I just highly recommend. Because Annie, you like writing about like murdery things like that?
She's a psycho. That one, Britney Spears in the flipping headphones, like
you went 27 minutes without.
I just want you to give us a few bars.
Ask about the last thing.
Oh, you've got a few minutes.
Yes. Okay. Now moving on to your final choice.
Yes.
Which is Monty Python.
So we could say it's always up on the bright side. So my parents were obsessed with this. Like, I grew up, like, we didn't have television for a long while. I have to tell you to people don't believe this as well. Like, I had 5 years of my childhood, my parents decided we didn't need television. We needed to do other things. But when we got it back, it was like we discovered this world of Monty Python, which was their generation, I guess. And we had they put the CD in the car everywhere we went. Like, my parents were playing the CD, and which is really, when you're a teenager, it's kind of cool. But actually, like, I have to say now, as a parent, my own kids would pick up things because I would play the music because it would bring back joy, and then you realize actually half of this is really inappropriate. You shouldn't learn any of this. Let's turn that. I didn't get that from my parents. But it was just this great, like, I loved again how they found the funny.
Was the CD sketches, or was it?
No, it was basically all the songs. And I mean, I have to give credit. I will give the guys from Monty Python credit. They got, I think, the only question I got right in my GCSE history, because I can't do tests. I'm one of these people that blanks out when they sit in front of a test. And I got asked the question, and one of the questions was something about Oliver Cromwell. And I knew about Oliver Cromwell because of the song. It's a song like Oliver Cromwell. And it was like, I knew he died, and I still know this. He died in 1599, died in 1658, September, because it's in the song. And that's my whole life. And it made me realize actually how, and this is again interesting for me, like, as I do books and stuff about brain, and I love the brain, how important it is for us to give kids so many different medias to learn from, because I didn't know anything from reading. We'd studied, we'd done things, but the song was just so vivid in my head. Sex education, I knew everything because there was the lovely medical love song about gonorrhea and stuff, which, again, I knew it all because it was in my head and I could sing the songs. And I found that really fascinating. Just that, I knew stuff, but not from learning or reading a book, but from these silly songs. And
so you learned about sex from Monty Python.
Monty Python, not the best. It's sacred when in one out here and out the other, though. That's the thing. But no, they have a medical love song.
Nudge.
Well, no, I mean, my parents are pretty much, they took, again, very open, the books I had, everything, they were just very open of, like, it's life. I mean, I'm glad I grew up in that, like, I'm not saying we didn't have television for 5 years, but, I grew up being given access. If I had questions, I could go and look for it. We had a very healthy attitudes towards talking around a lot of these conversations. But Monty Python, I loved. Again, it was just that. I mean, again, a lot of it, I guess, is now inappropriate. I think there are some bits now which are not maybe so great, but there's still lots in there, like where they just find the funny in the maybe not so funny, and they give you that humor, and like taught me that, I don't know, there's still so many quotes. I don't know about you guys, but there's so many quotes that you carry with you. And how many times your kids, my kids would fall over and I go, "Oh, it is but a scratch," and they're like, "What?" And then no one knows where I'm coming from.
But so who was your favourite? Who was your favourite of all of the Pythons?
Yeah. And what was your favourite film or favourite sketch?
I don't know. I mean, I have to say I was a massive fan of the Holy Grail. I mean, I loved the randomness. I loved the White Rabbit, and they were all afraid of that. I liked that, the crossing, and you shall answer these questions 3, and and all this stupidity stuff, because it's stuff that you could, it was just that play sense. It was so playful. I mean, there are bits in there which I've now rewatched, and I've watched with the kids, and I'm like, oh, we can fast forward this bit. That's again inappropriate, but it's just so funny, and the whole witches. I mean, I think that was the witches in the Holy Grail. I can't remember, but like, she turned me into a newt. I got better, I just loved all of this. Oh, and the voices, and just because I was really into voices and acting, and I mean, I didn't do an acting, but I wasn't an actor, but I loved all of the voices and the accents, and to mimic them and mock them, and to sing the songs. And I was just really, really, I mean, they were quite progressive. I mean, I don't know if you know this, I think it was in The Life of Brian, when they sort of shout, "Is it a girl? Is it a boy?" And they say, "Oh, it's a bit too early to start, imposing roles." And you're like, that was like the 70s. I mean, good on them. That's so important. That was there, and that there's so much. There's so much stuff which still feels very, very relevant. And it's like, oh, who's that? Oh, I think it's the king. How do you know it's the king? He's not got shit on him. He's not got shit all over him. The stupidity of like, Emma's just gone. Oh, she's paused.
I was all paused and going.
I loved all of the humor and the whole, like, the Black Death, and there's a terrible bit when they're just trying to obviously get rid of someone. He's like, "I'm not dead. You soon will be. I'm not dead." And it's horrendous. I loved all of that. And I think, all of that together.
My husband's a massive fan, and we watched The Life of Brian quite recently with my daughter, and he was a bit like, she'll find it, our daughter will find it hilarious. And she did. She just absolutely. My son wasn't that bothered, but she's like 12, and I think it's the absurdity of it, and she absolutely loved it.
There's just so
really,
much
really funny,
like
just really sweet, I think, and the voices are hilarious.
It's just that all of that's just kind of, you can sort of see, it's that weird. I mean, I guess I grew up on Monty Python and Roald Dahl. It's not exactly a shocker that I've done all these things where it's slightly morbid and maybe inappropriate, but but I just see it more positively. I think I'm just a positive person, and I see that you can find lots of funny in the not so funny. I mean, so I grew up, I always say, I'm very open about it. I'm a person with ADHD, so I used to grow up being, help, I'm being repressed. I was repressed. I wasn't allowed to be my weird self. All of this side of myself. For years, I just kept undercover, because I was like, I can't tell people I'm interested in that. They'll think I'm weird. And, it's just so many things. And I was already weird enough without saying I liked all
without saying, "Can I stuff your pet squirrel?"
But I think these are the best things about people. I mean, that's kind of the whole, genuinely the whole inspiration behind this program. I think when you get talking to people about the things that they're a bit like, "Oh, I don't know whether to tell anyone that I really love this," and then they tell you why they love it, and they tell you how much it means to them. And I think that's when you get to the really kind of interesting parts of
Yeah.
people that
Absolutely.
we're
That's what makes
all
us human.
deeply weird under the surface, aren't we? It's just some people pretend not to be. That's what I think anyway.
And also, yeah, absolutely. And that's what needs to be celebrated much more.
Yes.
And the fact is, we're writers, and pretty much whatever you write, there isn't anything slightly more weird than just creating something out of absolutely nothing. We're basically making shapes on a page, whether that's from your brain or not. Do you know what I mean? So you'd hope that people would be passionate and weird and obsessive and
you need people
think
to be
in different
inspired
ways
by different things. I mean,
yes,
I really want a picture book about taxidermy from you now, Lou. Like
everything. I just go down that, go down that avenue. I'll just be like, I mean, people are famous for this and people are famous for that. Louise Gooding, who likes talking about death.
You could combine it with the Georgie Grub sequel. You could combine a sequel to Georgie Grub involving taxidermy.
Oh my God, yes, death and filth. So he's ended up in a compactor with just eyes out of a thing, and he's got a melon, half-rotting melon, and a rat. Yeah. Onto a winner.
Brilliant. I mean, there's so many amazing
7-figure deal.
Exactly. I would just write all the inappropriate stuff. I just find all the inappropriate stuff, which I know children will enjoy and love, but we'll all be a bit about.
So, do you want to show? Have you got a copy of your book, Louise? Have you got anything that you
bring
can?
It up? I'm like,
yes.
Oh, did you not? Have you?
I didn't bring it up. Sorry.
Did you not?
I've got every other book. I've even brought my Monty Python.
Hey.
It's fine. But yeah, just like me.
Is there anything you want to tell us? Is there anything you want to tell us about that you've got that you're allowed to say about anything? Or
yeah, I've got 2 more coming out next year, but I'm not allowed to talk about those. But yeah, just like me is actually just based around, it's 40 different 40 neurologically and physically diverse people from around the world who broke stereotypes. As I said, I'm neurodiverse. I've also do live with chronic pain, because I have back issues. But I try and, with a lot of things, turn things into positive. I like finding positive sides to share and stories for people to discover. And it's so easy with so many things in life, to just feel repressed. I can't say repressed now. I've put Monty Python in there. Like you can't, talk about things or do things, and I like. That was the whole idea of just like me. I wanted to celebrate how wonderfully unique we were as humans, and this, there was just a gap in the market for celebrating that. And luckily now we've got amazing role models out there like Elle McNichol, Kerry Burnell, doing amazing things. Abigail Balfe doing amazing things, and Danielle, I have to say, Danielle Brown as well. Loads of people who I think are amazing and who are working actually to get more visibility for disabled or physically and neurologically different people. And I like, so that's the other stuff.
Long may it continue.
Side of me, that's what everyone knows me for. But this today has been the darker side.
Oh well, we love both sides.
We like both sides. No limits here. No limits. Thank you very much for being our guest.
Thank you.
Anna, who have we got? Who have we got next week? Do you know?
Oh, it's Phil, isn't it? Phil Earle. It's another of your. Yes,
children's writer,
so good. His book, it's amazing. When the Sky.
Yes,
and he's got 3 more absolutely cracking choices to chat through, hasn't he? So yes.
So we're very much looking forward to seeing you, our lovely audience, next week at the same time. And apart from that, we're going to wrap it up now and say goodnight. So
thank you so much.
Should we sing?
Louise?
Should we sing? You've got your headphones on. I think we should sing. Monty Python. Monty Python. Ready? A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Always look on the bright.